Now, folks, if you'll just gather around a little closer now. Come right in a little closer. That's it. That's fine, folks.
All right, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
Rush not to condemnation or judgment, or let's not celebrate too much. The most important thing is America is putting on the fights that we want to see. It's too valuable a territory to start rejoicing because you've got people who took one network side, promotional outfit or advisor, and you're in opposition to their practices and you're rejoicing because they seem to be falling apart. It's all about the fights we want to see. I was a staunch supporter of the PBC. Was that 2015? No doubt. They were putting it down. Now, you have a feeling that from the Hitchens-Richardson kid, he's the prospect, trying to develop into a contender. He left because the opportunities weren't there. The dates weren't there for him to fight. Young kid. This week, Tank made one of his famous tweet then delete maneuvers on Twitter, saying that he needs to take his talents elsewhere. So much for Leonard Ellaby talking about what a great job they're doing for him. The kid, I don't know, maybe he don't even want to box no more. Because they're so inactive, some of these fighters, or they're not being motivated by fighting top competition. You have to wonder how much desire they have to do it. But yeah, he tweeted that this week. So people are steaming in, talking about Tank's going to fight Ryan Garcia. But according to Chris Mannix, who is DAZN, he says that DAZN are willing to split the pay-per-view down the middle to make the fight happen. But the PBC are reluctant to. Or should I say Showtime. Ryan Garcia is accepted. He's the B side in the equation. Tank will get the bigger side of the split. Why won't they just split the broadcasting rights and get the fight done? Nope. One day Tank is going to be serious about one of these tweets. How are they going to make the fight if he's leaving? He's not in contract with TMT or Showtime. And according to Chris Mannix, this is a big stumbling block. People like Tim Smith, PBC, Friendly Media, the fan base, and Spence himself, at times it's almost felt like they've been trying to humiliate Terence Crawford. But has it backfired on them? Have they made a mistake by not giving him a better deal than what was a low percentage of the net? Not giving him more assurances that whatever they're saying they're going to give him, they would deliver? Have they made a mistake? Because he signed to fight David Avanesian on Black Prime. They're talking about paying Terence Crawford $10 million. The question is how much did that inspire Adrian Broner's decision to go over there? And the bigger question is how much will that influence more PBC fighters to actually get the fuck off the island? How much money are Black Prime working with? How serious are they looking to be players in the game? It's no point we celebrate, oh, we're glad this is happening, and they do a worse job than the PBC. How dedicated are they to the sport? In 2018, the likes of Adrian Broner pledged his loyalty to Al Heyman after turning down offers from Eddie Hearn and DAZN. This type of commitment that PBC fighters have shown to Al Heyman is now being tested. In recent years, Adrian Broner is talking about Al Heyman owes him money, and it appeared that he was paying Adrian Broner's money in bits. For whatever reason, I don't know. Floyd Mayweather recently signed to fight Deji, KSI's brother, on DAZN, the enemy. Floyd's even talking about having another pro fight. Why is he talking about that? Because he's discussing big fights for big money. Maybe with Showtime, but with outside parties too, like DAZN. And he seems more interested in promoting himself than he is Tank or Hitchens. That's why Hitchens disappeared. Broner and Tank are pretty close. I'm sure they're going to have a discussion, or may have had a discussion already, about the state of the PBC and whether he should stay there or not, or follow him over to Black Prime, or seek out his own deal elsewhere. Broner will not be on the December card where Terence Crawford defends his WBO belt against Avanesian, but he's already calling him his stablemate and he'll be in attendance in Omaha. Black Prime are teasing that more signings are imminent. It's not just the PBC who need to be keeping an eye on this, it's DAZN, top rank, because this has came from out left field in the last few days. A lot of insurgents coming in to try and take over the boxing game. Triller found himself a little out of their depth trying to promote the undisputed fight between Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos. They bid $6 million, ridiculously high for that fight. Made a few too many rookie mistakes and had to default, and Matchroom took it over with a bid of $3 million. Then this Marv Nation came from nowhere this year. they secured the rights to Zabeda versus Progress. 2.4 for fighters who are not pay-per-view, are not big draws on the network circuit. Will they pull it off? Are they going to stream it themselves or use one of these fringe streams that are popping up every second? Nobody knows. They've had to put a temp for that purse bid in escrow in compliance with the 10-day window to deposit funds in accordance with the WBC rules. And now, Block Prime are paying Terence Crawford how much for a fight with a European guy, relatively unknown, but is world class. You know, I curse Bob Arum quite a lot, but if I was to sit down and talk with Bob about boxing, most of you would love the vid. And the reason is, you know, when I'm talking to people with that experience, you'll learn a lot in that vid. But you see, Bob knows that being a European champion automatically gives you a high ranking with most sanctioning bodies. And it's always traditionally been like that. And that's the case with David Avanesian. David made a big splash when he beat Lejaraga, who was knocking everybody out over there in Spain, to become European champion. David smashed him in, and then I think the second fight, did he do him in a round? Then he took Josh Kelly's unbeaten record. He's also got victories over Shane Mosley. Yeah, old was Shane Mosley, but he's still there. And from what I remember, the Lamont Peterson fight was pretty close as well. The only conclusive loss on Avanesian's record was to War Machine, who has an official knockdown against Terence Crawford on his record. Sorry to break it to some of my brothers and sisters across the pond, but just because they're not fighting on ESPN or the PBC doesn't mean they do not have skills or they are very capable. And you can actually bounce back from losses. Don't listen to the reactionaries who go over the top when a fighter loses. You're simply just not acknowledging. There's a lot of people who just don't acknowledge anything outside of the PBC and ESPN. It was like when Keith Thurman fought Leonard Bundu for that interim WBA title he had, defending it. They was all saying that Bundu was going to get blown out quickly. And I remember being one of the only channels explaining to people that, no, Bundu, like David Avanesian, is a European champ, upset the odds on a Box Nation card with Frank Warren's golden boy, Frankie Gavin. Before that, he knocked out Lee Purdy on an Eddie Hearn card and had defended his European title about 4 or 5 times. I said, this ain't going to be no walkover. And yes, Thurman won practically every round, but it wasn't the one-round blowout that people were predicting. And Keith was knocking everybody out at the time. Observing the back and forths on Twitter yesterday, and you could just see the blatant bias. Like, what makes Stanionis, whether eye test or resume, any better than David Avanesian? What, beating Butev? Who did Butev beat? Jamal James? For that interim belt that James had? You know, the belts that the WBA said they're going to get rid of because they're just cluttering up, taking up too much room. Don't be biased like that, man. Don't be biased like that. You cannot have a go at Terence Crawford taking on Avanesian if Spencer's going to take on Stanionis rather than Boots. And the same goes for Terence. Why isn't he taking on Virgil Ortiz? Does Virgil Ortiz want the fight? I don't know. Jerron Ennis's people are getting impatient, and rightly so. Ennis is asking why Team Crawford didn't offer him the fight over Avanesian. And it's a fair question. He's ranked number 2 in the WBO. Virgil Ortiz is number 1. Why isn't he fighting either Ortiz or Boots? Shortly before that, Team Ennis submits request for IBF order to force the Errol Spence fight. Why are they having to force the champions to fight? De La Hoya, he said he's open to fight Jerron Boots Ennis. And here's the thing, why isn't that happening either? Why can't we just get that? Why are you going to wait until your 30s or whatever, waiting on Crawford and Spence? This isn't like back in the day when the challengers were unifying their belts and not waiting for the third wave or cycle of contenders to come around and they still haven't fought each other. You got to take the bull by the horns. And if Oscar is serious about that fight, they should make it. They should make it. The issue is, though, I have no doubt that DAZN would accommodate a fight like that. The issue is with Showtime, and I know you're going to say Boots isn't PBC. Well, fair enough, he's not PBC, but he's on that side of the street. And some of you are going to say, you would blame the PBC. Well, Chris Mannix came out and said the PBC are not agreeing, or at least they're being disagreeable, to the fight being split between DAZN and Showtime to make Ryan versus Tank. No one from the PBC has come out to challenge Chris Mannix? Nobody. And nobody, even the hardest PBC fan, would be surprised if the PBC took this type of stance. They have prevented a lot of fights happening. They have. But, if Spencer Crawford can't fight, they should be fighting Boots and Ortiz. And if Boots and Ortiz can't get them fights, they should fight each other. It's simple shit. There's a Muhammad Ali Act, which was made a big deal of in the 80s. But when it's really needed, and that's now, it's not being used. But that's if these fighters really want the fights, or if they're just talking sometimes. I mean, they don't have to sit down and read the Muhammad Ali Act, but you can get some people on it. Legal people, or even your brother. Pay your brother to go and read through it. Find the parts where if you want to fight somebody, no promoter can stop you getting a fight. If you and your opponent want the fight. Bob Arum, and see, this is the bad side of the business people in boxing. When he said that Terence Crawford not having a promoter made it difficult to make the Spence fight, it automatically reminded me of Audley Harrison's ordeal going against the Machine, which consisted of Barry Hearn and Frank Warren, as Audley tried to wing it as a free agent. He had won the gold medal in Sydney 2000 at Super Heavy, turned pro, lucrative contract with the BBC. And, the press from the jump, before a punch was thrown, they were knocking Audley. They were critiquing something or the other. Audley wasn't good enough, ultimately. But they didn't want a free agent making massive moves to disrupt the order of how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to go through Barry, Frank Warren. And what Bob was saying really is, this is what will happen to you if you don't take a major promoter along with you. They're trying to discourage boxers going it themselves and putting them out of business. And the facts are, Black Prime have temporarily saved Crawford from making career suicide, because boxing is a risk. I think Crawford would beat Errol Spence, but it's a dangerous fight either way. And you're going to be taking 35% of the net, of a percentage that they can't even show the books to confirm they could deliver this. Now go ahead, blame Crawford for the fight falling apart, but in Crawford's own words, he was speaking with the PBC from June this year. It's nearly November. It was on the PBC to get it done. And if Black Prime didn't step in, they were probably going to make Crawford take the worst deal in professional boxing ever, because they literally had him cornered. Where else could he go and what else could he do? Now, some of you are going to say, why do you care what he gets and all that? I'm all about boxing, I don't care. Well, that's true. And if he signed, he signed. I would have got to see the fight. Great. But they were trying to manipulate Terence Crawford, and they didn't get away with it. And now, the jig could be up with these 360 deals, as people are calling them, over that side of the street. Bob Arum seems to forget that Terence did have a promoter and his name was Bob Arum, and he still couldn't get that fight done. So, old AJ. I want to big up Trouble T. Roy on Twitter.
Ladies
and gentlemen,
a
dominating knockout. Congratulations, Mr. Melcher. Ladies and gentlemen, a dominating knockout. Congratulations.
Yeah, probably funny at the time. And Spence really bought into this brotherhood of black fighters on the PBC, rather than seeing it as, this is business, this is my promotional outlet, this is not us against them, this is boxing. You've got to handle your business in and outside the squared circle. When Roy Jones defended his 3 straps at 175 against Richard Hall, a Jamaican fighter, both men tested for steroids. Jones kept all his belts. Basically, none of the sanctioning bodies acknowledged the Indianapolis Commission's testing protocol. They didn't acknowledge it. So Roy kept all his straps. When Amir Khan lost his 2 belts to Lamont Peterson, and Peterson had the issues with his testosterone levels, the IBF let him keep his strap, but the WBA stripped him. And even today, the result stands that Peterson won the fight. It's not a no contest, it's not written off the books or anything. It's all politics. Now, the British Boxing Board of Control, they didn't recognise whatever trace amount of the fertility substance that Conor Benn tested for. So they didn't suspend him. They only recognised UCAD's testing, and Conor came up clean with UCAD. But we're hearing now, just the other day, that Conor gave up his licence. He relinquished his licence. This was at a hearing with the British Boxing Board of Control. Now, there was a few people saying that I was protecting Conor Benn, and I never was. I'm trying to get more information, and I still haven't got all what I need. But what I'm seeing so far is some very careful damage control by Eddie Hearn, and he's being assisted by the board. By Conor relinquishing his licence at a hearing with the board, it saves the board from suspending him and having to charge him with what VADA tested him positive for. No matter how small the trace amount, it saves them doing that. And now we're probably going to hear that it was cross-contamination or whatever reason they come up with, and that's that. They're going to try and clean it up as much as possible. People are still out there. The B sample is irrelevant. If it's not conclusively proved that the A sample was dirty, the B is irrelevant. A lot of people don't get that. I'm not going to say too much, but I'm going to conclude it like this. Either the board don't accept Conor relinquishing his licence because they think he's clean, or suspend the kid. But if you suspend him, automatically dirty. There's no damage control or PR that you can do to salvage the situation. But him giving up the licence gives DAZN and Matchroom a little time to put some spin on the situation, and by spring 2023 he'll have his licence back, won't he? Without no official penalty from either VADA or the British Boxing Board of Control. Adam Azim, Sky's lightweight prospect, or was he a light welter? Not sure. He's now headlining cards after 6 fights. That's impressive. I mean, he's 6-0, 5 knockouts, and he's headlining taking on Ryan Charlton, who's 9-3-1 and hasn't even proved himself to be British level. How is he headlining over Dion Juma and Mikel Lawal for the British Cruiserweight title? Tickets being sold, I guess. This guy's selling tickets, this Adam Azim. He's got a little fan base building, I assume. Looking forward to seeing how Lawal does against Juma. It will give us a little gauge on what level he potentially could be at or could reach. Maybe Juma pulls off the upset. Now, this is a good card, don't get me wrong, but LaRon Richards has signed a 1-fight deal with Sky. He split with Matchroom, and he's going to take on Zach Shelley, who's 12-1-1. Now, here's what I'm not getting. LaRon made a big deal about Eddie not being able to get him a big fight after he beat Carlos Gongora late last year. Excellent performance, not the most exciting performance, but very competent. Eddie lined up LaRon with a spot on the Anthony Joshua card in the Middle East against Ali Akhmedov, who is 19-1. The one loss was to Gongora, who LaRon Richards beat. Now hear this out. Akhmedov, who I believe was managed at one stage by Golovkin, 19 wins, 14 knockouts, 1 knockout loss to Gongora. In terms of an action fighter, he's the type of fighter that LaRon Richards needs to shine. Counterpunchers, cautious counterpunchers, need these kind of guys to bring the heat so we can appreciate their skills. The blend is supposed to complement each other. But he said, and his team said, Akhmedov is a step down. So we're dealing with 168. Akhmedov ranked number 10 by the WBC, number 6 by the IBF, coming off that win against Gabe Rosada on the AJ Usyk bill. So he's well ranked now, actually higher ranked than LaRon Richards, and certainly ranked higher than Zach Shelley. So they were mad at Eddie saying this is a step down, and I said he should take this fight. It's on the AJ Usyk bill against a come forward all action guy. So how is that a step down and you take on Zach Shelley? Now, no disrespect to Zach, he's a decent fighter, but he's domestic level. Akhmedov is well ranked, and not only that, LaRon's not even headlining the card. Somebody who's 6-0 is headlining the card, and you're talking about a step down? What's going on there? I tell you what, he better not struggle against Zach Shelley. He better make it look like easy work. Zach's not bad. He's 12-1-1. He's actually got a good win against Jermaine Brown in his last fight. But he's nowhere near Akhmedov's level, as far as I'm concerned. So the question is, did Team LaRon Richards really fancy that Akhmedov fight? That's the big question, rather than it's a step down. Because Akhmadov looked alright against Gabe. He looked alright. LaRon needs a fight. He hasn't fought since December 2021. And he's turning fights down. December 2021 when he outpointed Carlos Gongora. He needs to shake off the ring rust. He needs a paycheck too. Time to fight.